Hey, Joe here from Home Studio Corner talking about the Presonus StudioLive Series 3 mixer. And this video is one I hope I can delete down the road or replace with a different scenario, because as of right now, I actually don't use DAW mode on the StudioLive all that much. Now, I made it a point many times over the course of my YouTube career to state that while I do have a working relationship with Presonus, I used their equipment before they ever sponsored Home Studio Corner. And while we did do an exchange of they gave me this mixer in exchange for a series of videos, I'm also going to be honest and tell you there are going to be some things that I don't like. And one of them is the integration of DAW mode. It's not that I don't like it, it's just I don't think I like using control surfaces, period. Whether it's the StudioLive or the Avid ones that used to be Euphonics, or really any of them, even the big huge ones that come, with Pro Tools, the big HD rigs, the big huge mammoth things, the plugins are really designed to be used with a mouse for the most part. And I found that even though I love, and like I said in the last video, I love moving faders and getting that, and that's probably the most important part of the entire mix. Once I get into adding plugins and tweaking parameters, to me it's almost faster for me to just do it with the mouse than it is to kind of map it out onto the rotary encoders here on the mixer itself. Let me just show you an example. I've got a mix pulled up here in Studio One, and I want to do something on my drum bus. So I select the drum bus, and I can come over here on the window on the mixer, and I can see, okay, it's soloed, and I can see that it has the fat channel on it. Now, if I tap on the fat channel, what happens? It opens the fat channel on the screen. So I'm tapping it with my finger, and it's just basically opening it on the screen so I can see it. What it also does is it maps out the controls to these encoders here. So the high-pass filter, the key, the threshold of the compressor, the range. I don't even know what that means. What is range? That's the range of the gate. That's the threshold of the gate. Okay. Input ratio, output. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And then if I want to get to other controls, like the EQ controls, I've got to bank through until I find the ones that I want. And it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not really in order. For one thing, I don't want to see the gate control because I never use the gate on this fat channel, which is the section right here. I use the compressors and the EQs, and not even that EQ much. So I would love it if I could change this. And maybe I can, and I haven't figured that out. But for the most part, I found that I look here, I don't know, this says ratio. I don't know if that's the compressor, and I start adjusting it, and it is. Turns out if I turn that, that's changing the ratio of this compressor. But then if I come down here to threshold, I'm thinking, oh, this must be the threshold for the compressor, but it's actually the threshold for the gate. And over here, this output, that's the output of the compressor, and that's the input of the compressor, but it's not intuitive, and I don't know which is which. So if it takes longer than a moment or two to get to where I need to go, it's not worth it, because if I have to figure out every time I do this, okay, how do I get to that thing? Tap, 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 look, turn, okay, I'm there. It would be much faster just to do it with the mouse. And if we're doing those types of decisions 1,000 times over the course of a mix, I'm not going to, that's going to add minutes and even hours to my mix time, and I like to do things efficiently. So right now, this is not an efficient way to work. Now, that said, I've tried lots of other control surfaces in different capacities. I had the original 003 from Avid back when that was a thing, the big control surface, and I ended up not really using it almost at all for the control surface portion. It only had 8 faders, so I would have to bank, and I don't even think it had some plug-in control, but again, they would just kind of map out randomly across the knobs across the top, and it just wasn't useful. So this isn't so much a criticism of Presonus as it is just I don't personally connect with control surfaces. Until they can get to the point where it maps exactly to what I have here, it just doesn't work super well. So for me, as I've said this before, this is a mixer that I'm using for tracking sessions in the studio. That is its primary function. The fact that it does DAW mode is super cool, but it's not the primary thing that I use it for, and so I don't feel in any way like it's less valuable. I can still do static mixes with it, but I found even though I gave it a good college try, and I tried several times to mix completely on the board, I just got to a point where I was spinning my wheels and I was being less effective and having less fun and feeling less musical. I was distracted by the tools. So if the tool ever distracts you, just say, okay, I'm just not going to use it for this. And that's okay too. I think sometimes we get pieces of equipment and we feel like we have to use every single feature every day, every time, and that can be really constraining. For example, over here in the rack, I don't know if you can see it, but I've got this Avid 11 rack over here. Really cool and can be really useful for getting different for getting different guitar tones. But just because I like it and I used it on one of my albums a few years ago doesn't mean I have to always use it forever. And I think that's part of us evolving as musicians. I may come up on my next album and say, I just want to mix it through this thing entirely, and that's a challenge I'm going to give myself. Great. I just tried it, and it didn't work out super well for me, so I don't feel like this is a waste. I'm glad it's here. I just don't find myself using the DAW mode all that much, and I want you to know that if you're expecting DAW mode to solve all your problems, it probably won't, but the mixer itself is still super valuable even without that DAW mode button on it, so I'm still happy with it.